Excuse me, good sir. Have you ever heard about the greatest country in the world? Have you ever heard about the great and magnificent Republic of Poland? It is a cultural powerhouse of the Central Europe. I talk about it everywhere I go, and you should know about it too. I have always been fascinated by Poland's history, awed by its architecture, and captivated by its art, its cinema and animation. I feel like I am one of the greatest Polish patriots, although I am not from Poland. But maybe one day I will be able to call Poles my fellow countrymen. That is because my controversial political opinion is that countries of Visegrad Group should unite into one nation. The Great Polish Visegrad Commonwealth. This new superpower in the heart of Europe would be the perfect counterbalance against the both unhinged barbarism of the East and moral decay of the West. Through the sheer power of its superior culture, the Great Polish Visegrad Commonwealth will reignite the light of the civilization and help steer the rest of the world on the right track again. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Where was I? Oh, yes. I just love Poland and its art and culture. And in recent years, this country made another great contribution to the world of art in the form of one of the best miniature companies there are right now. Arkan Studio. I love painting models from their Dungeons and Lasers line, just for the fun of it. I painted this Minotaur, took extra delight in this gifted spider lady, dry brushed this owlbear, and practiced my blending on this Goblin King. Goblin King is a beautiful model, but he's kinda lonely. Fortunately, there is a way to fix this because a box of goblins also exists. So I acquired it and was about to assemble and paint the Goblin King's loyal subjects. And then it happened. Idea struck me. I could use these guys for my next Turnip28 project. Oh yes, you are watching Turnip28 video. That was quite a segue, wasn't it? As I mentioned in a previous video, go watch it by the way, I got pretty excited about the Shattered Lands expansion. Didn't know where to start first though. But when I laid eyes on these goblins, I imagined their rugged, half-naked bodies would make the perfect basis for Butcher's Brigade Slaughterhouse Yeomen. Special unit based on fodder, with few bonuses and penalties. It has double attacks, but only hits on improbable hits. Sounds like the opposite of fun to me, but it could be interesting. So let's get to work. I want to build 2 units of yeomen. That is 24 models. So I got another box of these goblins. One box gives you 2 different poses or body types, and another 2 of the same body types, but mirrored. I will have to kitbash and convert hard, so these models don't look all the same. My plan is to glue the bodies first, and then add arms with weapons from historical kits. This is where I stumbled upon my first problem when I wanted to arm my first batch of yeomen with missile weapons. It would look weird if these yeomen were all half-naked and ragged, except for having fancy sleeves. So I must choose different approach. I glued goblins' arms to their bodies and cut off their original hands with weapons. I also liberated historical missile weapon holding hands from their sleeved arms. Goblin arms will have to be reposed now to fit the new weapons. It felt pretty daunting at first, but during the process I realized it is only about cutting the arms, add the joints, and then gluing them back together. Sometimes you have to cut more and sometimes less to fit the pose. Any gaps will be filled with putty later. If you ever decide to take on a project like this, my pro tip is to compare your reposed arm to the arm that held the weapon originally to recreate the pose, and you will do it just fine. With arms and weapons all in place and reposed, I glued the heads from various kits on and filled the gaps with the milliput and green stuff. BQ visors on official Butcher's Brigade helmets are a bit more subtle. So, to give an homage to this artistic choice, I tried not to go overboard with mine. And then I wrapped long thin strips of green stuff milliput mix around their necks. It will create nice separation between the body and helmet. Don't forget that this coat is butcher themed, so it is time to add some thematic accessories. I glued sausages and hams to their belts, and I was quite generous with them. After all, rules say they have sausage in every pocket. I decided to glue tufts before painting this time. Well, not exactly tufts. I tried a new method. I added little dots of PVA glue with toothpick randomly on the bodies and then sprinkled some static grass on. I like this look of subtle growth so far. I'm really curious about how it will look when painted. Now for the second unit of Slaughterhouse Yeomen, this time armed with close combat weapons. I wanted to leave them with their goblin weapons at first, but it just didn't feel right, so I gave them peasant weapons. This felt more right, but I didn't do much with poses. I basically had 12 buddies with more or less the same pose. So I got into some more radical reposing. So radical, I had to cut up the weapons sometimes, and I had to source some empty hands from Warlord Games section 0 set. Now these guys finally feel right. So let's do all the other steps. Gluing heads, sculpting visors, filling gaps, and gluing on some stuff. Let's glue them all to the bases now. I'm choosing a multi-basing approach again, just as I did with my Feast of Charybdis fodder. There will be 2 sets of 3 models on 50mm bases, 2 sets of 2 models on 40mm bases, and 2 25mm bases with 1 model per unit. So far, I have seen only 25mm and 50mm bases in Dungeons and Laser sets though. No 40mm. So I use these plain bases instead. And don't worry, these 40mm bases were also ethically sourced from Poland, the greatest country in the world. To make them not so plain, I made some blue stuff molds with smaller bases for some homemade toppers. And now look at this, these will fit perfectly with the rest. Last but not least, I made banners when models were glued to the bases. Brass rods were used to make balls along with cut pieces of plastic tube. The banners were made of piece of plastic art softened by the heat to look more like piece of fabric. And yeomen are now fully assembled. And this is what they look like painted. I went for a simple color scheme of white, brown and red, inspired by this picture of the official Butcher's Brigade's model. It suits this colt pretty well. For the next unit, I need something more reliable, something that can actually hit its target. So I am making a unit of black powder brutes. They were made pretty much the same way as the yeomen. Reposing was a little harder to do in some cases, because some arms were sculpted into the weapons, but I managed to deal with it. I gave them these fancy furry tall hats and backpacks, so they are more easily recognizable on the table. Glue them to the base, made banner, and another unit is done. These brutes will give this cult much needed firepower and look pretty menacing. For the next unit, I wanted some cavalry for mobility and heavy hitting. But I didn't know how to approach it so it would visually fit this cult. Didn't come up with anything, so I went for the second best choice, the lump. For this unit, I must reach for other kit, our old friend Goblin King. I originally had other plans with him, but I came to the conclusion the lump will be fun addition to this cult. So let's get this mini assembled. Chunky model. It will make a proper lump. Instead of his head, I glued on this 8mm steel ball to use as a base for sculpting the helmet with visor. I sculpted the simple helmet, just like I did on smaller minis, added little circle bits on the sides, and tiny rivets made of pieces of cut plastic tube to make it more detailed. Then I wrapped the head in few milliput strips. The last and the biggest strip of milliput was connected to the original Goblin King's cloak to create one big piece of cloth wrap around the lump's neck and chest. I snipped off the axe head and replaced it with two pieces of plastic art glued together that I trimmed a little, cut off the lower part of the handle, and he is holding a cleaver now. All that remains now are sausages and grass. And I have my lump now. Look at this big hungry boy. I'm counting on him to cause a lot of headache to any opponents of this cult. Now to make some snobs. I have two bodies left from goblin boxes, so there are going to be my toadies. How I am going to make a tough, I will figure out somehow. But let's make those toadies first. I gave them tall, pointy helmets based on official Butcher's Brigade's designs. This helmet is the tallest and pointiest, so it must bear some significance, I guess. And now I have to make the tough. But I have no goblin bodies left. Well, except some from another box I bought a while ago and forgot about. The cave spiders. The big ones are supposed to have little goblins riding on their back. So the models made a decision for me. My tough is going to be mounted. But now I have another great idea. If I take this Goblin King's head, do some milliput magic around it, I can do something similar to a fat pig. While I wait for milliput to cure, I adjust some details on the Goblin Rider, removing his hand to adjust later and sculpting its helmet around a small steel ball. This helmet has to be the tallest and the pointiest of all, because this is their leader. Some finishing touches. Glorious! Now I have a new cult to play with. This list may not be the most effective, but I think it is flavorful, and what matters the most, it looks cool. This was so far the quickest Turnip28 regiment I have ever done. Their vibe is not quite in line with my other turnip minis, but I think it is not a bad thing. I tried something different from my regular historical miniatures, and the result is quite nice. So I am adding these guys into my collection, and soon I will get into making the next Shattered Lance cult. Which one? I haven't decided yet. I would love to do them all, but my hobby time is quite limited, so I must choose carefully. You will see in the next video. As always, I promise it is going to be a banger. As you know, I am able to make a new video every 2 or 3 months. So, while you eagerly wait for what am I going to cook up next, you can go give my other videos a watch, especially if you are new here. Also, smash that subscribe button. And if you feel extra generous, throw me a quick buck on coffee.com. That will make me extra happy. And most importantly, go kitbash some cool models, give them proper paint job, and don't forget to give the Poland a visit sometime, because it is the greatest country in the world!